Experience the spine-tingling suspense and horror of 3 gripping tales that reveal close brushes with danger. As the narrators share their unnerving encounters, you'll be immersed in the chilling atmospheres of both wild forests and quiet urban streets. Brace yourself for an exhilarating journey through moments of fear, survival, and instinct. Nearly 8 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I ventured into the wilderness of Upper Idaho for a solo camping trip. Though I wasn't an expert camper, I was familiar with long hikes and basic camping skills. The area was known for its abundance of wildlife, including black and grizzly bears, so preparation was essential, which discouraged many casual hikers and campers. The region was sparsely populated. Occasional tourists would appear on the trails, but most campsites remained quiet. Determined to avoid the popular tourist spots, I chose a lesser-known trail just outside a well-known mountain range. This path meandered through dense forest and rolling hills, eventually opening up to a stunning vista of the mountain range. I knew the nearest established trail, leading to a small lake with likely some visitors, was 3 miles away, so I bypassed it in favor of solitude. Throughout my hike, the trail was nearly deserted, and when I arrived at the campsite, it was wide open and utterly empty. I pitched my tent on the far side of the site and fashioned a fire pit from large stones. With only 2 or 3 hours of daylight left, my plan was simple: relax by the campsite and think about the next day's plans. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I built up the fire, roasted marshmallows, and gazed up at the stars. The valley was silent except for a soft breeze and distant calls from wildlife. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by the crunching of leaves coming from the woods. It was unmistakably footsteps, someone walking, frozen and uncertain. I stared toward the noise until a figure emerged at the edge of my campsite. A man, cloaked in the flickering shadows of the campfire, stood with a camping backpack. His features were hard to discern, but something about his presence felt off. He looked at me, then around the campsite, and before I could speak, muttered an apologetic sorry in a near whisper before turning back the way he came. I found his behavior strange. Why apologize for no clear reason? And why be out in the woods alone at night like that? Despite the odd interruption, I returned to my stargazing after a few minutes, hoping the man would reach whatever destination he sought safely. Several hours passed, or so it seemed, when clouds rolled in, swallowing the moon and stars and casting darkness over the forest. Not quite tired, I sat again by the fire, waiting for sleep. Then, hurried footsteps returned, more frantic this time. The man appeared once more, entering the firelight. His scruffy beard and oily black hair were matted, his clothes dirt-streaked, and his eyes wide with fear, yet expressionless. He caught his breath, but remained alert, staring past me repeatedly to my right, always returning his gaze to me. I asked if he was lost, offering assistance, but he muttered a vague no, and said he didn't want to bother me. His eyes kept darting toward the shadows beyond my shoulder, and his tension grew. Suddenly, his voice lowered and he asked unsettling questions. Why was I camping there alone? Were there others with me? Had I been following him? Each question increased the unease, especially when he abruptly asked, "Then why are you with her?" A question that frightened me as I turned to look behind me, seeing nothing but the dark, empty woods. Before I could process it, terror overtook the man's face, and he bolted into the woods at a full sprint, vanishing into the night away from the trail and any signs of safety. My heart pounded as I scanned the surroundings, trying to understand what he had been seeing. I suspected he was haunted by paranoia, perhaps believing a woman or group pursued him. When I looked back, expecting to see someone, there was no one. Shaken and scared, I packed up immediately. Though the man vanished in a direction that should have led deeper into danger, I kept on edge throughout my hike back to the car. Every small noise jolted me, fearing the presence he described or an unknown threat. I never saw anyone nor encountered danger, but the experience left an indelible mark. The next morning, I reported the incident to the local police, concerned for the man's welfare. Over years of reflection and conversations, the likeliest explanation is that he had been lost for days, suffering hunger, dehydration, and paranoia so severe that he mistook me for another pursuer and failed to accept help. Sadly, he was never found again, leaving his fate uncertain. Though this theory seems most plausible, there remains a chilling possibility that his fears were real and that I narrowly escaped a dangerous situation thanks to his warnings. Regardless, his presence and sudden flight in the dark woods continue to haunt me to this day. This incident occurred one night when I was determined to pull an all-nighter to finish some important work papers. I had procrastinated a bit too much, and with other commitments piling up, there was no option but to stay awake and complete everything that night. After brewing a fresh cup of coffee, I headed upstairs to my office, closed the door to minimize distractions, and focused intently on my work. For several hours, I managed to stay productive, sipping my coffee and locking in on the task at hand. Eventually, fatigue started creeping in as I ran out of coffee and my energy waned. Thinking a quick break and stretching might help, I made my way downstairs to brew another cup. However, as the coffee was brewing, I suddenly felt an uncomfortable chill, as if a cold breeze was sweeping through the lower level of the house. Checking the thermostat, I saw the heat was on, but set several degrees lower than usual. Curious, I investigated and noticed that a window at the back of the living room was wide open. Normally, I left my downstairs windows slightly cracked for ventilation during the day, but this was wide open, which unsettled me. Approaching cautiously, I scanned outside the window and saw no footprints or signs of disturbance on the ground below. There was nothing to indicate someone had entered through there. Part of me wanted to convince myself that I had simply forgotten to close it properly after adjusting it during the day. Closing the window tightly, I grabbed my fresh coffee and headed back upstairs. Still, over the next 30 minutes, my mind refused to settle. Something felt off, and I decided to do a thorough walkthrough, checking every room to reassure myself that I was truly alone. I found nothing unusual and returned to my office, hoping to refocus. But about an hour later, just as exhaustion was mounting, a sudden, loud thump behind me jolted me awake. The sound was intense, seemingly coming from right behind my desk. Puzzled, I reminded myself that my bedroom was directly on the other side of that wall. Still, the noise was too loud to ignore. Summoning courage, I left my desk and opened my bedroom door slowly, scanning the room from the hallway. Everything appeared normal, no signs of anything amiss, no objects displaced, and the floor was clear. The strange noise seemed inexplicable. Convinced that my mind was playing tricks on me due to sleep deprivation, I returned to my office. Yet, my focus was shattered, and the memory of that loud thump lingered like a shadow. Then I suddenly remembered the closet behind me, a small storage space I rarely used filled with old clothes and jackets. I had completely forgotten it was there. Curious and anxious, I got up and slid open the closet door cautiously. My breath caught in my throat. There, mere inches from me behind the coats, stood a stranger. His presence was so close that, if not for the thin layer of clothing separating us, he might have grabbed me before I had the chance to react. Panic surged through my body as the stranger forcibly pushed past me, causing the closet to tear apart. I bolted into the hallway, heart pounding. As I fled, the man called out my name in a voice I didn't recognize, gritty, unsettling, and laced with menace, as though he knew me intimately. Desperately, I ran to a neighbor's house just around the corner, pounding on their door until someone answered and called the police. When the authorities arrived, the intruder was gone. No trail indicated where he had fled. Reflecting on the terrifying ordeal, it became clear this was no random break-in. A stranger had climbed through my open window during the night, stealthily moving through my home, even hiding in a closet right behind me as I worked. The fact that he knew my name suggested a calculated, premeditated intrusion, perhaps by stalker. Knowing the intruder might return is a chilling thought. Had I not chosen to stay up that night and catch up on work, I might never have survived. This incident, which occurred only a month ago, starkly reminds me how vulnerable we can be, even within the supposed safety of our own homes. Despite providing the police with descriptions, it's unlikely the perpetrator will ever be found or brought to justice, leaving me with lingering fear and relief that I escaped unharmed. This incident took place just a month ago, on a weekend when I chose to attend one of my best friend's birthday gatherings. Normally, I prefer to stay home doing nothing, but this time felt different, so I went. It wasn't meant to be a big celebration, just a close-knit group of friends sharing a few drinks and conversations. I live in an apartment about a 10-minute drive from my friend's place. Around 6:30 p.m., I arrived. The evening was uneventful, more of a social gathering than a party. We drank a little and talked, and by about 1 a.m., most people had either left or decided to stay the night. I dislike sleeping anywhere but my own bed, but still a bit tipsy, I didn't want to drive. Against my better judgment, I opted to walk home, leaving my car in my friend's driveway. The walk was familiar, about 25 to 30 minutes through quiet suburban streets. Saying goodbye to the few friends still there, I set off. The neighborhood was calm and silent, with no cars or people outside, and most homes dark as everyone seemed asleep. While walking, a pair of headlights approached slowly, then stopped near me. The driver cracked the window slightly and asked if I needed a ride. I politely declined, thanking him, and he drove off. His concern seemed genuine enough, so I dismissed any further worries. Continuing on the same road, I soon noticed the same car reflecting light from behind me. He was driving back in the opposite direction and pulled over to the roadside instead of passing me. The fact that he turned around and stopped within my sight struck me as odd. I checked behind me frequently, but the man never left the vehicle, and eventually the car disappeared from sight. Reaching the next neighborhood segment, I tried to ignore my growing unease. Walking alone at night had a way of amplifying suspicion, yet every minute felt a bit reassuring. However, about 10 minutes from home, I spotted a car parked directly in the street, headlights blazing. It was unmistakably the same car from before. A lump formed in my throat. Realizing this was unlikely to be mere coincidence. From where I stood, only 2 routes led to my apartment. Usually, I stuck to this road for most of the journey. The alternative was a park up ahead with a walking trail cutting through the woods, unlit and rarely used at night, so normally less safe. But faced with this unsettling parked car, I considered the woods might be safer. As I neared the trail's entrance, the car was oddly near it, seemingly poised just ahead. I could reach the path before passing the vehicle, but it all felt too contrived, too perfect. Uneasy, I decided against the woods and faced the car head-on, continuing along the road. Holding my breath as I passed, I noticed no one inside. The car, so persistent just moments ago, was now empty. Then, barely visible through the darkness, I caught sight of a man lurking at the edge of the woods, watching me intently. Panic surged immediately. I sprinted away, pulling out my phone. Hearing the man start his car, I realized my presence of mind had scared him off. Instead of pursuing, he made a U-turn and disappeared. I didn't stop running until safely inside my apartment. Later, I reported the incident to the police, suspecting an attempted kidnapping given all the unsettling coincidences. What haunts me is the thought, if I trusted the woods path instead of passing by the car, I might have walked straight into a trap. Alone in the dark forest with that man waiting would have offered me no escape. With only a vague description of his car and voice, chances are slim they'll ever catch or charge him, but the memory lingers. As a reminder of how precious instincts and caution can be when walking home under the cover of night. These spine-chilling accounts remind us that threats can emerge unexpectedly, whether deep in a wilderness or within our own homes and neighborhoods. Each narrator faced moments where intuition and alertness were crucial to their survival. These stories emphasize the vital importance of trusting your instincts and staying vigilant when something feels wrong, as these qualities can be the difference between safety and danger. If you found these gripping tales of survival and suspense captivating, please consider liking, sharing, or leaving a comment. Your support fuels the sharing of more unforgettable stories.